Okay. Sorry about that, guys. My apologies. As I said, I tested the stream with the Optus and it was just so much stronger than the phone yesterday. We had full 4G. Then when we put it on this morning, I switched between the mobile, which was working fine, mind you, and the Optus broadband. And we had like 4G wavering into 3G. The stream was pausing and freezing and dropping out. So, phone is the best solution I have right now. We're going to do some critique today. Some critique, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Not really. Well, we will talk about those kind of things, but I'm not going to scare the pants off the people that have sent their photos in. I did have a huge response. We had roughly about 40 photos sent in. Now, we're not going to do 40. I tend to do about 8 per session, so I've got about 4 or 5 weeks lined up ready to go. But you can send me, if you want to join in the coming weeks, in 3 or 4 weeks' time, when I finish up the images that I have, send me an email to adam@𝗟𝗏𝗡𝗍𝗏𝗍photography.com with a 2000 pixel wide image and a short description about that image. And the way I do this, basically, I don't pick and choose. I just start based on when the email was sent to me and then do the next 8 images, okay? The only time I do pick and choose is if someone has sent me 2 images, then I'll just choose one of those and delete the other one. Okay, all right. How good was yesterday? Yesterday was incredible. We had Sue Ellen Sadie Cook deliver an absolutely phenomenal presentation, really inspiring, absolutely brilliant. Down in the description below, I have put the link to that video in case you missed it yesterday. Jump back over there after this, of course, after this show, even though this won't be as good probably. Well, almost definitely. Jump back after this show and check that out. If you're looking for something to do, it was absolutely phenomenal. Lots of inspiration, really just brilliant photography. Now, on that subject, I think Sue Ellen is with us today. I saw her name in the comments earlier. If you would like, I'm trying to encourage her to produce a workshop, a tutorial series, something along those lines, and she's thinking about it. If you would be interested in doing a Sue Ellen Sadie Cook style workshop or learning how to produce those images via a video tutorial series, throw some encouragement in the comments there and we'll see if we can't help Sue Ellen, convince her that it's a good idea to get that going. I'm going to help her out and because I'd love to do them myself, absolutely. Okay, big news, next Thursday, 𝗏𝗏𝗃 live on the channel. 𝗏𝗏𝗃 delivering. Basically, he was talking about, I said, do whatever you like, whatever you're passionate about, and he's going to deliver us a bit of a journey through his landscape photography career. I'm super interested. Tom's a lot of fun. He's a good mate of mine. He'll keep us entertained, no doubt at all. So pencil that in the diary. Next Thursday, 10 a.m., 𝗏𝗏𝗃 journey through landscape photography. What else have we got? Big news next week. I've got a second monitor over here now so I can have some notes and also have the live stream tools over there. Big announcement next week. We're going to have a free photo competition, that will be judged live. The final will be judged live on the channel in a couple of weeks' time. So I'll have all the details of that next week. I'm just working out some finer details. What else have we got? Oh, if you're new, we do this every morning at this time, 10 a.m. Sydney time, Australian Eastern Standard Time, for roughly about an hour, sometimes a little shorter, sometimes a little bit longer. If you'd like to join us on most mornings, hit the subscribe button, then to the right of the subscribe button, hit the little bell and select get notifications so you don't miss out. I noticed while all the kerfuffle was going on this morning, and I hope I'm coming through, it looks like we're coming through, I noticed with all the kerfuffle going on this morning, Anthony Salnero subscribed. G'day Anthony, thanks for joining the channel. I get a little banner that sort of comes across the screen, and if you're watching now and you want to see your name in lights, hit the subscribe button and you should, if it's working, fingers crossed, everything's not really working this morning, let's be honest, you should see a little banner welcoming you to Easy Way Photography as a new subscriber. Most of you are already subscribed, and I thank you very much. Before we get started, one last thing, one other big thank you to all of you out there who are helping generate this momentum, build this live project up. We started roughly, I think it was about 3 weeks ago, and we had 5 or 6 live viewers. I remember 𝗏𝗏𝗡, are you here today, Neville? He was the first person that said, when I went live, hello Adam, and Neville's been with us that whole time ever since. So thank you guys for building up. We started with 6. Yesterday, 𝗬𝗏𝗡 broke the record with 200 live concurrent viewers and many, many, many more views on top of that. But it's all down to you guys. I just turn up here every morning and waffle on for an hour, talk about photography, talk about Photoshop, and you guys are spreading the word and telling everyone about it. So if you're enjoying this, tell the camera clubs, tell your photography friends. But most of all, a big thank you for encouraging me to keep on going, because there's been a couple of times where I thought, oh, it's a bit hard and I'm struggling to get to my other work and emails, but all this encouragement is keeping me going and I'm absolutely loving it, even though sometimes it's a little bit difficult. All right, let's do it. I can't see the fresh comments today for some reason. It's one of those days, right? Happy Easter to everyone. I forgot about that as well. We are coming live today, Friday, Good Friday, and we will also be doing a live stream on Monday as well, just skipping out Saturday and Sunday as per normal. So I'll see you back here again on Monday as well. I'll jump over and grab the phone to check the comments a bit later. Hopefully everything's going well. It says it's going well. Let's forget about it. If I'm talking to myself, we can see the replay later and it's all good. Let's get into the critique. That's working. Brilliant. A positive. Photoshop is working. Okay. We've got one from Rod Knight. He says, I have attached a photo I took a couple of years ago. It's a shot of the beach at Kaikoura, South Island, New Zealand, at sunrise at low tide. I was taken by the texture of the lava flow and the leading lines it created. It looks like crocodile skin. I was thinking about entering it in a local competition and would welcome your critique on how I can improve it. I note that the JPEG file is not as good as the TIFF file. Well, in actual fact, the JPEG, as long as you've finished editing, the JPEG file is, in theory, probably just as good as the TIFF file. Where the advantage comes from a TIFF file is throughout the editing process. Okay, once the files are completed and finished, the JPEG should be almost just as good, as long as you're not going to edit again, because as you continually edit and save, it will keep compressing, whereas a TIFF file is lossless compression, so you don't lose any quality each time you save it, whereas a JPEG, each time you save, it will continually compress the file. So yeah, anyway, the JPEG should be just as good as the TIFF. As long as we're finished editing, let's check out the image. Crocodile skin, leading lines, lava flow. All right. Now, I only had a very, very brief look at these because I was kind of frantically setting up and then frantically trying to get the stream to work. So I'm a bit on the spot here. But, lava flow, beautiful. The texture is beautiful. Yes, it does look like crocodile skin. I like all that texture. Beautiful, warm, magenta sunrise. Was it a sunrise? Or I think it was a sunrise, wasn't it? Sunrise. Absolutely beautiful. So it has a nice feeling. Couple of things to improve. So let's do the good, the bad, and the ugly. I never really thought we were actually going to do that, but we can use this as a bit of a critique outline. The good, I love the texture. I love the leading lines, and I particularly love the magenta-y blue sunrise sky. The bad, and I don't anticipate I'll find bad in each and every photo, but when I say bad, it's not bad. These are the things that we could improve on. I don't want to crush any dreams, that's for sure, because, you know, we're all having fun. We all love photography, and that's what it's all about, you know, having fun and loving what we're doing and having that passion for what we're doing. and getting out and seeing a beautiful sunrise like this. But if there was a bad, and there is a bad, there's some dust spots here. 1, 2. Is there any more? Just a couple of dust spots. So definitely look at removing those. If you haven't already, Rod, signed up to 𝗟𝗵𝗲𝗀𝗡𝗍𝗏𝗂.com.au, any of the courses over there that I produce, and you're watching along today, have a look down below in the description, because I've changed my beginner Photoshop workflow course to pay whatever you like, okay, including $0. If you're doing it tough, you can sign up for free, and that's available to everyone watching along. Have a look down in the description below. The reason I'm bringing that up now is because that workflow provides one of the real benefits of that workflow. Well, number one, it's hopefully going to improve your photography quality output. But number two, it's going to provide a lot of structure in the fact that we remove the dust spots at a particular time in that workflow. Okay? So we're always going to be looking for them and removing them at that particular point. Also, things like straightening the horizon. How's the horizon going? You can see I've got my little ruler here. Drag that down. Okay, the horizon is fractionally out too. So the workflow will benefit you tremendously in the fact that it will give you structure and the points to do A, B, C, remove the dust, straighten the horizon, all those different things at that early point in the workflow to make sure when we share them or enter them into competitions that all those boxes are ticked, and we're not going to lose any points for silly dust spots or wonky horizons or anything like that. Because you can take a photo like this that might score, pretty well, and then if myself as a judge if I see dust spots and a wonky horizon, I'm going to really knock some points off that. Okay. Other points of improvement. Look, I think for me, I would like a stronger subject. I don't know if you live near this location in New Zealand or not, or if you're on holidays, but I would like to find, a big, beautiful rock pool with some seaweed and starfish or something like that. What I'm talking about is I would like a stronger subject. Okay, I would like a stronger subject to really set this photo off, whether it be a tower of rock, or a big rock, or, as I said, a rock pool, or even one individual starfish, or, something like that. I suppose the subject could be the leading lines, but it's not particularly strong as a subject. I like the photo, but if you were to improve it, remove the dust spots, straighten the horizon, look for a stronger subject at the point of capture. What do you guys think? You like this one? Good, the bad, the ugly. I don't know. That's silly, isn't it? Good, the bad, the ugly. There is no ugly here. It's a beautiful photo. We'll ignore the ugly. We'll talk about the good and the bad. It was a bit of a cheesy attempt to get some extra YouTube clicks. If you're brand new to the stream too, and you've found your way to this stream because YouTube recommended it to you this morning up in your YouTube stream, give me a shout out. I got a funny feeling that YouTube started recommending this live stream over the last few days, because I'm seeing some stats suggesting that. So if you're new and you found us in the YouTube recommended live stream section or the recommended video section, give me a shout out. I'd love to know if you're here with us for the first time today. We do this every morning at 10 a.m. Sydney time. Here we go. Doug Porter, a good mate of mine, a super talented photographer. He doesn't need his photos to be critiqued, and you'll see why when we have a look at this one. It's an interesting format. Look at that long, skinny format. You'll also see why when we see that too. He calls this series Melancholy. If you didn't already know, I get so nervous and panicked when I read out loud, but it's part of this sort of format. I like the story, so excuse me if I stutter and stumble through these words. Doug says, I created this trilogy as a homage to the brother and sister who were born, lived and passed in the home their father built in my street their entire lives. Sadly, both Dorothy and Eric have now passed. Sorry to hear that, Doug. Sounds like they were friends of yours, live close by. I was never able to photograph them, so the people in the images are some that I captured some years ago in the hills above Farina at Lake Como. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. but I felt they fulfilled the vision I had. The rooms in the series are from their actual home, which has now descended into a state of total desolation, probably mirroring the feelings of all the residents of this street at their passing. Very, very poetic. And is obviously destined for redevelopment. I always try and elicit a reaction / response to my composite imagery, and I hope that I have succeeded here. The individual pieces from left to right, there's 3 of them, crossing over with you soon, my dear, and reunited. Beautiful story, Doug, and absolutely, as a photographer, I'm really drawn to the storytelling component of photography, and I think it is probably, maybe not in the early days. In the early days, we're trying to get, crisp, sharp photos of beautiful, vibrant colors and exploding light and all that beautiful stuff. And for me, in the first 3 or 4 or 5 years, I didn't consider the story at all. But as I get more experienced, the storytelling element becomes super, super important, particularly if you lose your mojo, because what tends to happen is we get really excited about the brand new camera, the vibrant colors, the light, the detail, and all of that stuff, including the likes and comments we get on social media. It's super exciting in the first 6-12 months, absolutely. But then we start to wane off, and then we look to, panoramic photography is the next big thing, or long exposure photography, or we switch to macro photography, and we're looking to reignite that initial passion that we had through something new, something exciting, and that's all good stuff. But eventually we sort of run through that. 2 or 3 years in, we wonder, well, what's next? What's the new thing? What's the excitement? And for me, and I recommend this to everyone that's ever lost their mojo, is start looking for story, for meaning, for, purpose in your photography, and use your photography as more of a form of self-expression to tell who you are and tell the stories that are nearest and dearest to you. And Doug, you're to be congratulated, because that is exactly what I'm reading from this story here. Let's take a look at the images. Let's zoom in and look at them individually as a series here. Because I've asked Doug for only a smallish file size, the resolution is not that great, but look at it. Just number one, Doug, first of all, is just the finish, and the processing is absolute. I'm going to need to zoom in a little bit more, but the window with the light streaming in, we have this white dove, an older gentleman with his head down, looks like he's holding a handkerchief, maybe wiping back some tears. If I just for a second allow myself to go back, this image is called Crossing Over. So obviously this older gentleman has just lost the love of his life, the partner of his life. There she is, crossing over in spirit to a beautiful, peaceful dove. Absolutely. Just a powerful, powerful image. Powerful image. Is there any way I can improve it? Doug, you're an absolute master, mate. I should ban you. No, I shouldn't ban you, because your images are an absolute joy, but you don't need any critique. But I encourage you to keep putting them in here. Maybe I can have some critique at some point, but it's the pinnacle of imagery, in my opinion, Doug's work, along with the likes of Sue Ellen Cook and some of the other photographers we will have on. I will invite Doug Cook to come on. Doug Cook, right? Doug Porter. We had a chat that I wanted you to come on and have do a presentation. Let's do that, mate. Let's do that. Let's have a look at the next image. Beautiful. Again, very similar, isn't it? It's very similar in style. You have that window, dilapidated house. This time we have an elderly lady peering out the window. And then we have a very subtle reflection of a gentleman in the broken mirror here, the antique mirror here. This image was called With You Soon, My Dear. Okay. Beautiful. Is there anything I could improve? No, I don't think so. I love these little light streams coming through. Looks like there's some mist coming through there as well. Just gorgeous, mate, gorgeous. And here they both are, both in spirit form, represented by those beautiful white doves, I think they are. I'm not sure is the book the Bible maybe? I'm not sure. And then in the mirror, we have them out on the balcony, sort of reminiscing about the good times, just living life for what it was together. Absolutely phenomenal, Doug. Congratulations. I really, really love it. Absolutely love it. Let's move along. I can't see any questions. Who said that? Excuse me. Leonie says there's absolutely no way she's entering or submitting her images after seeing these three. They are phenomenal images, but you know what? It's a really funny thing, isn't it? And I'm not immune from this. What I'm about to tell you. When I walk into a gallery, whether it be Tom's gallery, and I haven't had the pleasure to go to 𝗬𝗏 Cook's gallery down in Tassie, but any of those artists that have had 10 years experience of really refining and developing that skill set and having the ability to really, and that's what I'm talking about, really express themselves and see the world in their own unique way. And that's what Doug's got here as well. And I walk into a gallery like that or scanning through Instagram and see something that blows me away, and I just think, why do I bother? Why do I bother with photography when there is other artists out there with a skill set that are so far beyond, so far off in my opinion of where I'm at, if you like, that it can be really disheartening. It can be one of two things. You can look at it as inspiration of what is possible if we keep working hard and keep improving our photography and keep, going along that path of trying to attain that. But a lot of the time I see that as inspiration. Absolutely I do. But a lot of the time as well, particularly when I'm really, really working hard on my photography, really, really putting a lot of effort in. And then I look at mine and I look at that and I think, oh, I just put so much effort in the last 6 months into my work. And is it really ever going to get there? So, don't be disheartened. I feel it as well. I think all artists feel that sometimes, that their work is not at the standard that they would really like, and it feels like we're never going to get there. But trust me, when I look back on where my work was 10 years ago from today, I can see all the progress and all the improvement, and the fact that I'm now able to tell stories in a much more powerful, emotive, purposeful and meaningful way. Sometimes, not all the time, sometimes. I don't tend to show the ones that aren't a success, obviously. But when I look back, I can see that progress, and then I think, wow, well, if I made it that far in the last 5 or 10 years, well, there is hope that I can make it even further in the next 5 or 10 years. So don't be disheartened. We're all on a different stage of the journey, and, Doug is a master of what he does. Here we go. Zoom back. Karen Buckley, whilst holidaying in the Flinders Ranges last November, we drove along the Bunaroo Road, I think that's how you say it, I don't know, stopping at the most popular Razorback Lookout. Just spectacular location down there in South Australia. I love how the dirt track below weaves across the top of, excuse me, here we go, stumble. I love how the dirt track below weaves across the top of the ridge top, leading your eye to the colourful and impressive Henson Range in the background. I've talked myself into this stutter and stumble this morning, haven't I? It's all a confidence thing, and I've lost it. I have lost it. At least I feel confident about photography at this point. Hopefully. Crikey. Okay. Number one, yes, absolutely spectacular. Look at that beautiful road, winding its way across those hills back to that beautiful mountain range. Some lovely wispy, cloudy blue sky in the background. So, it looks to me like this is a midday, somewhere midday type shot. Rather harsh shadows, but it's quite nicely lit. The good, I think the composition is good. I love the road. I love the elevated position, and I love the fact you've got that subject of the hills and the mountains in the background. How would I improve this? There's no real bad. The colour seems a little bit yellow. a little bit yellowish. And maybe you were trying to capture that midday sort of golden sunlight. But I'm tempted, I don't know. What if we just tilt this back fractionally blue? Let's go to color balance here and just have a mess about. Okay, so you can see I'm thinking it's maybe a little bit greenish, a little bit yellowish. So in that case, we might just move the yellow across to the blues a little and the green across to magentas a fraction. Very subtle change, but I think it's a little bit better. What if we add an auto curves? Auto curves, so if we come down here to our adjustment layer icon, auto curves will often, well it does, it adjusts the brightness, the contrast, and the color a little bit. So it's always a good default just to use an auto curves. Click the auto button here. You can see that's given the image an incredible pop, probably too much, I'll be honest. Hold down Option or Alt, click auto again. We can flick through these options. You can see that is a bit more natural. If you're really going for the really natural look, fine dark and light colors of an auto curve here is giving me a really natural color set, and that's what I was looking for. If we click OK, I'll turn both of those off. We've got a rather saturated yellow foreground, and maybe that's what you were going for, but it just felt like it was overly over the top. Maybe if we did want that golden color, we could maybe go solid color layer, choose an orange, change the blend mode. This is called painting with pure sunlight. Change the blend mode to color dodge. That's over the top, isn't it? Just slightly. Double click back in on the colored square. We won't want that too much. Invert that, Command or Control I. And look, maybe, I've forgotten whose image this was. Whose image? Karen? Maybe Karen was, this is what you did originally. And this would just be a slightly different take on that, I suppose. Let's just drop the opacity down rather low, the flow down. Check our hardness, it's on 100, drop that down. White brush, and we'll just sweep this through a little bit like that. And look, I think it doesn't need much before, after. So I've just given it a little bit more brightness. You could take this over the top and maybe add a little vignette. I don't think it needs it though. I don't think it needs it. I don't think we will. So I've just, auto curves has brightened up and brought those natural colors back. And then we just added the painting pure sunlight layer just to give it a little bit more of that golden color. We could maybe add a fraction of contrast curves. It's probably too much, but we won't paint it all in. Just a little bit of contrast, maybe in the foreground. That will accentuate the depth. Let's just accentuate the depth. You can see we have a slightly hazier mountain in the background. We could accentuate that a little bit, like the famous romantic landscape painters used to do. Solid color. Let's just click black, that's fine. Turn the layer off. I now have a solid color layer turned off. Double click back in, and we're going to choose the color of the sky. Because what you'll notice is, if you've ever stood on the top of a lookout, like Karen is standing here on the top of a lookout, you'll notice that the objects right away in the distance, the mountains, will be a hazy color, which is a closer color representation to the sky. So if it's midday, they'll be hazy blue like they are here. If it's sunrise or sunset, they'll be hazy golden orange. So let's choose the color of the sky, that blue, perfect. Turn that back on, that's the color of the sky. Drop the opacity down, I don't know, 40%, perfect, 40, 50%. Click on the mask, Command or Control I, and what we can do, I don't know, this probably won't work, but it might. Let's increase the depth. Now, painting this hazy blue on the mountains will push them into the distance. Okay, so just that little bit there. Just gives you a bit more depth, pushes them back. Okay? I don't know. Just having some fun, playing around. Beautiful photo. Love the composition. Absolutely gorgeous. Let's move along. We're dragging the chain today, aren't we? Gay, are you out there today? Gay, in the live stream? You're normally with us. Gay says, this is a photo of the 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏. Actually, this one, Gay, was the thumbnail that I used for today because I thought it was really attention grabbing. I really enjoyed it. At Lake Clifton. I love Lake Clifton. I really love the winding jetty. If you haven't been to Lake Clifton and you live in WA, well, you probably best you don't go there now with all the social distancing, this, that, and the other, and whatnot, although I don't know what WA's conditions are. However, Google Lake Clifton, WA, and you'll see this incredible winding jetty, and you'll see these beautiful 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏 that we're about to see here. I wanted to get away from the normal photos and do something different. Most shots you see are of the landing, the jetty, 𝗃𝗵𝗃𝗀. When I went there, I shot the beautiful curving jetty with the 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏 in the foreground water. Okay, let's have a look. Okay, so she wanted something different. Let's check it out. Absolutely. Looks like Cocoa Pops in milk. a little bit. It reminds me of macro shot of Cocoa Pops in milk. Could we manage to make an interesting photo with breakfast cereal in milk? I don't know. Challenge for next week. It's cool. I like it. I like how the density and the size of the 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏 changes as we move back through the image because that tends to give the image a lot of depth, and I really like that too. So the good, I like the abstract composition. I like, yeah, absolutely. I like that. I like the composition mostly. The bad or things we could improve on, we're kind of burning the highlights here. They're very, very white back here. So I would try and hold the exposure back a little bit so that we can maintain just a little bit of water ripples in the background, just a hint of water ripples in the background. And then the other thing is the color palette is a little bit magenta-ish. Now this might have been done on purpose, and if it was, then completely ignore me. But it feels a little bit magenta-ish. So let's, again, one of the easy ways, I suppose, to check the color palette or even check your processing, right at the end of your processing, add an auto curves and just flick around and see if you don't like one of the different options a little better. Let's do that. Let's assume we're right at the end. We add a curves layer. I do this quite regularly. Add an auto curves layer. Already I quite like. Do we quite like the extra contrast? I do, particularly in the foreground. Okay, hold down Option or Alt and click on the Auto button again. Let's have a look if the colors tweak here a little bit. No, that's roughly the same color palette. That's roughly the same color palette. And that didn't do a lot either. Okay, it's letting me down. I do like the extra contrast of enhanced contrast and brightness. Let's leave that there. Let's go to color balance again. I feel like it's too much magenta. We could maybe add a little bit more warmth like that. See, now I feel like we're getting that beautiful sunrise glow by not so much removing the magenta, but a little bit of removing the magenta, more adding a little bit of yellow and a little bit of red to really warm that up. I feel like the color palette for me, and this is just for me, is a little bit more appealing. Let's have a look at the difference before. After, subtle change, very, very subtle change. If it's not for you, if you really like that pinkish, purplish, magenta-ish color palette, then absolutely stick with it. Thanks for that image, Gay. There's a lot of questions flashing up over there. I hope they're questions. I hope it's not. The stream kind of is a bit ordinary this morning, and you're kind of talking to yourself. We'll check that out in a minute. Let me have a look. Oh no, you guys giving Tom Putt a hard time. Tom loves pink, purple, and magenta. We know that, don't we? Tom, I hope you're going to wear those spectacular pants and spectacular shirt next Thursday. Tom Putt has an incredible dress sense. We love it. We love it. I want to know where to get those pants, Tom Putt. You better wear them, and I'm going to ask you to stand up so we can all see them in the live stream next Thursday. It's going to be amazing. Put it in your diary. Lots of inspiration, and I think we might even have a few laughs and a good time with Tom Putt on here. At least he won't be in the comments section. At the very least, that is a positive point. Let's move along. Ren is another regular. Thank you, Ren, for supporting this live project and sharing it all with your friends and being here on most mornings. I see your name here most mornings. I'm not sure if you're with us here this morning. Hopefully you are. This image is at one of my favourite places near my home, Drakes Brook Weir. Last night was clear and cool. This was a couple of weeks back, or a month back, I think. I'm not sure. Last night was clear and cool. As always, I get the feeling of total peace and tranquility. This is the beautiful thing. Feel that emotion. Connect with the landscape and try and infuse that with your photography. That's the storytelling side of things. It doesn't have to be a beautiful illustrative narration like we get from Sue Ellen Cook or Douglas Porter. It can be a beautiful connection to the reality of the landscape and how it makes you feel, just like Ren is telling us here. The stars were bright and majestic and well positioned over a lonely tree. This scene relaxes my mind given that all the world seems to have gone mad with current events. Okay, so it's relatively recent. I realize there is a big picture and the universe will always find a way to preserve itself. So there's some hope. Let's check it out. Let's zoom back a little. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. I often talk about strong subject, simplicity, and great light in award-winning photos in particular, but that is what I'm striving for in the majority of my images. Strong subject. I love a strong subject. Have a look at the images I like to produce. And I should show you, shouldn't I? I should show you some images. I'm working up my level of confidence for a presentation, maybe next week or the week after, with some of my latest work. But I'm always looking for a strong subject. I'm always looking for a level of simplicity, and I'm always looking for great light. Now, although this light may not be considered the traditional golden morning light or afternoon light in the golden hour, the light is great. It's complementary to the subject, to the scene, and that's what we want, to the story. The light is complementary to the story, which was, that sense of awe and, the stars being majestic, and what other words do we use? Peace and tranquility. All of those things are coming through. Let's zoom in. Absolutely beautiful. I love the composition here with the tree in the bottom right corner, balanced with the Milky Way diagonally coming up from the horizon on the left there. Great. So good. Absolutely the good is composition, story, and the ability to capture that peace, tranquility, and emotion. I am getting a lot of that here. The things we could improve on, let's call them the bad, but it's not really. It's just the things we could improve on. I am seeing a little bit of color, what do we call it? Color banding. I'm not sure if you guys can see that here. Let's zoom in a little bit. I don't want to really highlight it too much, but see how it goes from blue, and then we have a band of green, and then a band of magenta-y pink. This is a relatively easy one to fix. Let me show you how. Let me duplicate the background layer and drag it to the top. And all I do is I change the blend mode to color, okay? And then we blur it a little bit. And what happens? Well, you'll see what happens. So now that we're in blend mode color, it's only going to blur the color, not the stars, which will kind of blur off these banding. I'm not sure if you can see it. In fact, looking over on my left screen, you can just kind of see it. Let me show you, get the arrow. The blue here, and then it starts a green band through here and the pinkish one through here. Hopefully you can see that. If we go up to filter, blur, Gaussian blur, Gaussian blur, as you know, I don't know how to say that. And we just keep moving the blur level up until that disappears. That's pretty good there. We needed quite a bit of blur, okay? We now have a rather nice vignette effect there without it transitioning through green and pink. Okay, I would then add a layer mask, invert that layer mask because we don't need to blur all the color transitions. B for brush, And then with a rather strong brush, we could just paint that in there. Okay, absolutely, easy fixed. We've removed that little color cast. So I would do that. There is a lot of noise. There's a few ways to get a higher quality astro image, particularly your foreground. I would be inclined to maybe take a longer exposure to reduce the noise, or use a median stack technique. A median stack technique. If you have a look back in my videos, there's 2 videos on how to produce astrophotography that were posted a couple of years back. You'll have to look back a little ways. And one of them is how to process astrophotos, and the other one is how to reduce noise via median stack technique, which is absolutely incredible for getting the highest quality astrophotos. I would suggest to have a look at that. Other than that, it's an absolutely spectacular photo. Well done. One point that I really, really love is the fact that you haven't been tempted to hammer the noise down at the cost of the details. So I can see in this image, I can see there is noise in areas, but I can also see you've held the detail. We are, in my opinion, much, much, much better off not worrying so much about the noise and preserving the finer details of the trees and the leaves. Done to perfection, a beautiful astro image. Well done. Moving along. Jeff and Lynn Nankervis. Now, I believe this wasn't signed off on the email as to whether it was Jeff or whether it was Lynn. I believe Lynn watches the live stream, so I'm thinking it's Lynn rather than Jeff, this particular image. If I'm wrong, and it is Jeff, let me know in the comments there, and I will turn that around after this once I get to that image. Wow, 129 viewers. It's not a 𝗀𝗏𝗃 𝗬𝗃 world record, but we're going okay. We're over 100. If you're new to the stream, we do this every morning at 10 a.m. Sydney time. So roughly this time of the day, whatever that happens to be, wherever you are in the world. To make sure you don't miss a live show, hit the subscribe button. Your name will flash up in lights, which is a good thing anyway, right? Just test it, see if it does. Maybe it's broken. A bit cheeky to get extra subscribers. And also hit the notifications button so you get a little notification when we go live each morning, Monday to Friday, and you can join us again. We have lots of good stuff with presentations, Photoshop tips and tricks, photo critique like we're doing now, etc., etc. Did I read the description? I don't think I did. This was a sunrise a few weeks ago before lockdown. I was trying to capture, I should have gone and spell check this, but I'm no one to be doing spell check, am I? I was trying to capture the color, the reflections, but also giving it some context. My first attempt at using Photoshop after completing the beginner's session of the Photoshop bundle. I think it's Lynn. Hi, Lynn, if you're out there. Down below, the beginner's course is now pay whatever you like if you're interested in that as well. Lynn is obviously a student. Let's check it out. First of all, spectacular, colourful sun. Was it a sunrise? We don't know. We don't know. Doesn't matter. Sunrise or sunset. I'm guessing sunrise. What are you doing? You want to say hi? I'll be out in a second.
Who is it?
Oh, it's YouTube. My little boy coming and saying hello, isn't he gorgeous? He's got his own YouTube channel coming up. We'll see how that goes. Okay. Distraction. Yeah, that's what we've all got these days, isn't it? We all got our families at home. We're having a great time. I hope you. There are some positives. I'm kind of enjoying it as we get used to the situation. Beautiful sunrise photo, spectacular colours. So the good is I love the colours. I'm enjoying the 1/3, 2/3 composition because I believe the sky and the colourful sky is the most important part of this image. You could have even potentially maybe panned up a little bit higher. How to improve it? Number one, I would be looking for that big, strong subject. So, pick out a beautiful reflection, a big expanse of water in one of these puddles. If you had have dropped your camera right down to within, centimeters or whatnot of one of these puddles, all of a sudden one of those puddles becomes a giant lake of reflection, and you would have this incredible sky and an incredible reflection. So the foreground here, it's okay, it's a bit messy and it's a bit complex, doesn't really have a lot going for it in my opinion, but if you hopefully it was safe enough and the swell wasn't too big, if you could get right down low on top of one of those reflections, it would make this image just a lot better in my opinion, because it would take out a lot of that complexity in the foreground that isn't really required. Other than that, I think maybe what does an auto curve do? Curves, I think maybe a little bit more light and pop might help. Maybe not like that though. Maybe like that. Fine, dark and light colors. Is it giving it a bit more light? No, it's done absolutely nothing. There you go. But another curves, let's just maybe add a little bit of light and contrast. Yeah, I'd be inclined to go a little bit more like that. And then maybe with a black brush, B for brush, in black, we could just add that vignette back in there. Just like that. So we end up just giving the photo a bit more light. Maybe we could add that vignette down here as well. So we end up by having a stronger section of light, which we've now got in the middle, and maybe we could, not exposure, maybe we could even make that a little bit brighter, another curves layer. Like that, invert, white brush. Okay, just like that. And what if we add a little bit of solid color wash as well? Who knows? A lot of these not bad. A lot of these techniques you'll find in previous videos, solid color in soft light. Let's just double click back in there. Do you like the pinkish purples? I quite like pinkish purple, magenta-ish in some of my sunrise, sunset skies. I also often like a beautiful warm orange. So which one do you like? Which one appeals? Maybe you love the original and hence why you delivered it to me in that fashion. Let's go with a pinkish purple. Maybe that's a bit too much. Just lower the opacity there. Let's have a look before. Okay, before. Beautiful sky, but we've just tweaked a few little things, given a bit more light into the central area, which I believe is the interest point or the subject, and we added a little bit of pinkish purple. I don't know which one's better. I quite enjoy that, but again, that's my eye, my style. That one is very beautiful in its own right. Moving along, we've got 2 to go. We've got 2 to go. Stick with me. 2 more beautiful photos. Rosie, another viewer that we see most mornings. Hopefully you're here with us today, Rosie. We have probably feeling a bit nervous right now. I know what it feels like when my image pops up at the AIPP live judging or the APA live judging. My heart kind of starts beating a million miles an hour because I'm hoping that those judges are going to give me a positive critique or a positive score. Okay, so I know what it feels like, but it's a good thing. It's a good way to learn and have our photos viewed by someone else that can offer a different perspective. I took this shot in Death Valley, California. What a spectacular location. I've never been there, but I would love to go there. I would absolutely love to go there one day. I was there before sunrise to get the early morning light hitting the dunes when it rose to give that golden glow to the sand. Sorry, my reading is horrible, horrendous and horrible together. I wanted to show the expansiveness of the desert, but also the intrusion of humanity with the tiny footprints trekking across the dunes. Okay, would love to hear your thoughts if I can improve this image. Let's take a look. Zoom back a little. Wow, I love it. I do, I love it. Look at the depth and the expansiveness, and I love the crop. I feel like the lens you've used was not a super duper wide angle, which you would be really, really tempting to try and capture a super wide angle with these dunes, I imagine. I feel like this is more of a 50mm or a 75. Let me see if there's any info on the file here. File info. it's going to prove me wrong. This will be a disaster, won't it? Look at that, 100 to 400. Does it say what it was on? It was on 100 mil, so I wasn't far off. Click OK, and I love that you've used that longer lens perspective, because I think narrowing that perspective allows my imagination to wonder and think that this goes on and on and on and on, which absolutely helps tell the story that you were trying to achieve. So it's really important that we have that story of what we were trying to achieve, whether it be in a natural scenario or in a illustrative scenario, because it helps us make the decisions of lenses and compositions and perspective and shutter speed and all those different things come into helping us tell the story. In this case, the lens choice does a really fantastic job of helping to tell Rosie's story here. The footprints, they're kind of unavoidable, I suppose, but as part of your story, absolutely, the human intrusion. How would I improve it? Look, I've seen this shot done several times before, and this is a really, really great version of it. Often you'll see, like off in the distance, maybe right on this sand dune in the background here, it would be really great if there was a tiny little person. Now, you could wait for a little tiny person to be there, or you could capture one and paste that in there. That would be, just that little. In fact, at the AIPP, I often hear the judges call them Easter eggs, and it's rather appropriate this weekend that we bring that up. What they mean is that tiny little bundle of joy, or that little surprise to an image that really sets the entire image off. So we have the dunes and the expanse, we have the footprints, but if I could follow the footprints and find a little, human that gives scale to the entire scene, that would really set this off tremendously, in my opinion. And it wouldn't bother me if it was pasted in after the fact or whether it was captured at the moment. For me, I'm not fussed. It just adds to the story and adds to the scale of this particular image by having that in there. Now, I understand a lot of people don't want to do that, and respect to that as well. For me, it wouldn't bother me. For you, it might do. So in that case, don't do it. The other thing, I love the light. You could potentially swing this a couple of different ways. You could go a kind of a high-key, dusty feel. Just to give it something different that's not run-of-the-mill that we see most of the people producing, which is straight down the line as you would have seen it on the day. And don't get me wrong, this is a gorgeous rendition of golden light in the early morning there. And look, I don't think that improves it, to be honest, but you could go a slightly different take by going dusty like that, or we could maybe even dodge and burn with, trying to pick out some of the areas for shadows. Let's just try that. Let's try that. Curves, we'll just darken down with the curves layer, just like so. Command or Control invert, and let's just pick out a few areas to apply a little bit of shadow to, maybe, whoa, hello. That was a bit intense, wasn't it? Turn the opacity down and turn my flow back down. Not a lot of people use flow. I use flow because it will give you a softer edge brush, and that's all there really is to it. So maybe that area could be a bit in shadow. Maybe we got a bit more shadow there. More shadow through there. Bit of shadow there. In fact, what I'm going to do is pull down the black point so we don't. What I can see is we're lifting up the saturation in the shadows a little bit. Maybe the foreground could be a little bit in shadow here, like so, just a little. I'm doing this very roughly, refine it yourself, a little bit more in the darker areas there. And what tends to happen when we, that dune probably should be in light. When we do this and we darken off certain areas and leave other areas to light, often it tends to become, that's a bit much, a little bit more interesting because there's a higher contrast is probably the most interesting element we can add to our photos. So by enhancing the darks or darkening the darks and lightening the lights a little bit, we're going to add more contrast, a greater difference between the darks and the lights, and maybe add more interest to the photo. Let's push it really over the top. And look, please don't take offense. This is just me playing around with what I would do. It's my style. I'm not suggesting it's better than yours. Color dodge. an orange layer in color dodge, painting with pure sunlight. Yep, too much, I agree. Let's come down, dial that back. Click on the mask, Command or Control I, and we'll turn our opacity down a little bit, and maybe, you know, just those golden highlights. Typical style. I've ruined your photo by going over the top. But what I've done is I've added a little bit, enhanced the darks, enhanced the lights. Before, it's just another option. I don't think it needs it. You know, I think yours is absolutely beautiful. Think about popping a little human element in the background. I think that would be absolutely spectacular. One to go, do we? Final one. We got 120. We've had a few drop off. But a lot of you are still there. Thanks for watching along. If you enjoy it, I would love it if you could just click the like button. That just supports the channel. The other ways to support, drop a comment, subscribe, notifications, all that good stuff. And the big one, help build the momentum by telling your camera clubs, tell your photography friends. If you have a good time, 10 a.m. in the mornings, watching along, then I'm sure hopefully they will too. Graham Gall, are you out there, Graham? Also another regular. Okay. He says, he calls this image golden lining. It is still dark on this side of Camel Rock, but on the other side there is a glimmer of hope. Beautiful. I love that poetic sentence. As a new day dawns. Excuse me, I stopped halfway. There are still many storm clouds, but if we stay strong and have faith, we will get there. Let's take a look at the image. Dramatic. Romantic even. I think, Graham, the other day I presented a live YouTube, one of the live videos. Have a look back at the stream. We're up to, I think, video 17. Video 17. One of them was how to produce this dramatic, romantic style. And I think maybe Graham was watching that and maybe produced this image from that. I can see these clouds. They look like they're sort of looming over the top of the subject. Okay? I got a feeling that maybe Graham has added those clouds onto the sky in the background, and I'm not 100%, but if you have, I think it's very effective and works quite well. I love the glimmer of hope from the sunshine sort of bursting through in the background. There's a lot to love. I love the drama. I love the romantic nature of it. I love the story. Great subject, nice composition, strong subject, leading lines drawing us back. Dramatic sky. There's a lot going on. How would I improve this? There's a bit of a blue cast in the foreground. Let's see if we can't tweak that out. What does an auto curves do? I got a funny feeling it might get a bit funky because we're very different kind of color themes in the sky in the foreground, but we'll try. Very, very bright. Hold down Option or Alt. Yeah, it's not removing the blue. Cancel. We will delete that for now. I just want to remove the blue from the foreground. What's the best way to do that? Maybe color balance. We could also use hue saturation actually. Hue saturation. That's not helping, is it? Psychedelic. You know, I'd expect Camel Rock to be more in that sort of tone there, but that does funky things to the beach. But that's getting a bit more neutral there, isn't it? See, very dark and purple. It's a bit greenish. I'm only talking about the foreground. Let's just paint a little bit of that in and see if it helps. Command or Control I. It's a tricky one, Graham, a real tricky one. You've got me a bit nervous here because pulling these color casts out when they're different in the foreground to the sky is a very difficult thing. I love the glimmer of light in the water too there. Okay, that's looking better. Even the sand does look a touch, although it's a bit green, it does look a touch better, so I'm happy with that. Let's add a little bit of a warm wash. Now I understand Graham probably was trying to communicate that combination of cold, being cold and hopeless in the foreground, and that warm and inviting hope in the background maybe. So if that was your intention, Graham, then maybe don't pull out as much blue as I've pulled out here. Color layer, we might switch this to soft light. Okay, now that's, for me, those two layers there are maybe a little bit more appealing, maybe. We could also maybe pop that light in the background a little bit. Let's add a curves layer and just brighten it up a little bit. Command or Control I, just through here. Give that a real sense of hope behind there. A few dark clouds remain, but a real sense of hope. And then that old sort of sea mist. Let's add a little bit of sea mist, sort of light explosion right on the subject here. This is a bit of an Instagram favorite. It used to be years ago, maybe it isn't anymore. We'll add you'll see I love my solid color, and if you sign up for the workshop or the essentials courses down below and then move on to the intermediate and advanced layers, you'll see all of these different solid color tricks and techniques and how I love to use them. What we'll do actually, we'll leave it black, we'll turn it off, double click back in, and we're going to get the color from the sky right there. Maybe a little bit, yeah, a little bit darker and more orange like that. What are we going to do? Turn it back on, turn the opacity down like this, and we're going to produce a little bit of sea mist, hopefully. Click on the layer, invert, rather low brush, 15%. And we can kind of paint it in there like the sun's kind of bending around there, creating that glow. A little bit of sea mist. Yeah, I'm digging it. I'm digging it. Maybe a bit too much over here. Also adds a little bit of depth to the image. It's a bit funky and green there, isn't it? Let's see if we can't just tweak that into a more pleasing color. Let's try color balance. I've got the midtones. That should do the trick. You can see green is opposite to magenta. So to combat green, we can go to the magentas. You can see there's also some blue. So we'll go to the yellows. I'm not getting it, am I? Oh, it looks horrible. Well, the sky looks interesting. Might be beyond me, Graham. Let's delete that. The other way to get around this, when you're having a lot of trouble like I'm having here, is click on a hue saturation layer. Click on the little hand icon and click on the color that's giving us trouble. It seems to be in the yellows or cyans. Desaturate that. That's not working either. Okay. Woo! The fun of live stream. We will get there. We'll go back to the master menu and desaturate everything. There we go. Command or Control invert. B for brush. And we'll just take, with a white brush, we'll just take some of that green away. And Graham, this is not your fault. This was me that introduced the green in the first place, wasn't it? Something like that. That's better. Looking good. Curves, not curves, solid color again. We love it, don't we? Well, I do. Once again, orange. Okay. Soft light this time. A little bit brighter. Just want to introduce a little bit of that warmth into the foreground. All right, I've gone to town. Look, you could even add a little bit of red for intimidation in the background. We were doing that, weren't we? How did I do that? Hue saturation. A little bit of pinkish red in the background. Sort of adds a level of foreboding, I suppose, maybe, and also gives us a little bit of a different color palette, more interesting color palette, a combination of the reds and the yellows. I don't know, I feel like we're just going to town here. Great finale. I didn't set this up in any particular way. I've just added some contrast here to the sky, a little bit extra luminance and contrast. Here we go, around here. Oh, it's way over the top, but we're having fun. Okay, the foreground's still a bit green, isn't it? Let's see if we can't. Hue saturation. One of the other ones that I used to like to do when I was having trouble, and the sand's a bit greenish, is, what was it? Colorize. Colorize, and I'll pick a sort of a golden sandy, a color that I think the sand should be. You know, maybe something like that goldish color. Invert, and we'll just paint a little bit of this over the top. You know, it reminds me of Sue Ellen's presentation, well, in a fumbling way, Sue Ellen's presentation yesterday. If you never quite know how you're going to get there, it's just a case of tweaking and pushing and pulling and trying. We only really have 4 elements that we can control or tweak in any given art piece, photography or landscape painting, for that matter, and that is light, contrast, color, and detail. So, you know, if something looks funky, it's either going to be the color that it is, it's going to be the level of contrast, or the level of brightness or darkness that it has, or the level of detail. So there's a series of tools, and I've just flicked through about half a dozen there, and rarely will I use them. But in this case, and I can still see some issues. Look, the water is still greenish, bluish back there. That should be more neutral. It would just be a case of tossing and turning until I got that. Look, I could just desaturate the water as well. But we'll leave it there. Let's have a look. Sorry about this, Graham. I went to town a bit, didn't I? Let's have a look at the starting point. Okay. Beautiful, dramatic image. Absolutely, Graham. And I like the story and the narrative between the cold foreground colors and the warm background colors. And I tried to hold a little bit of that to a certain degree. Wasn't terribly respectful, was I? And we kind of went in that direction there. It's a different perspective on the same image. Sort of tossing and turning, just messing with the colors and the contrast and the brightness. That's it. That's all we've got. We've still got 117 people with us. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you like the stream, you can support the channel by telling your friends, hitting the like button, subscribing, and getting the notifications. I'll be back on Easter Monday. So those of you that have the day off that are still essential workers, hopefully I can entertain you for an hour in the morning there while you have your morning cuppa. Once again, thanks to everyone. Have a great Easter weekend. Stay safe, stay well, love to your family, and I will see you on Monday morning. Bring me a chocky Easter egg. That'd be great. Oh, actually, before everyone disappears, was there any questions? I probably lost you all already, have I? Probably lost you all already. Oh, wow. How am I ever going to go through these? Sorry, my stream wasn't working today. Because I had the internet problems, my live chat disconnected itself. So normally I'll be able to answer these as we go. Look, I'll have a look if there was any particularly important questions, and I'll answer them on Monday morning. Thank you once again, and I'll see you then. Bye for now.